Hey, Kevin.
Hi, Michael. The show's hilarious. Love it. So it's very grounded. Yet I like how you're able to kind of go really out there with like with the concepts and still make it feel very kind of everyday life. And I just want to know, like, how did you come up with the concept of Koala Man, and what was it like bringing it to life?
Initially, well, first of all, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Initially, the idea was to just keep it very grounded.
Mhm.
In the shorts that I did, it was just, a middle-aged man going through a midlife crisis, wanted to become a superhero, and the villains he was fighting were just, petty criminals, Damo and Darren, kids that littered, graffitied, whatever. But as I was doing those shorts, I, I just thought it was funny having like a villain. There's actually a villain that he has called I think at the time it wasn't the Kookaburra. I think it was sorry, it was the cockatoo in the shorts. And to me, it was funny that it wasn't like the guy in a suit. It was actually like a real cockatoo. And I think from there, that's kind of made me realize like, oh, this shouldn't just be a show that's like grounded, like where it's purely real. It should be able to go anywhere because like that's what kind of subverts the expectation, I guess. Like, and it makes it more fun to write for because you can do the satire of everyday life, grounded humor, but also like you can go to surreal, fantastical places too, if it makes sense for the show. That's always kind of like the thing that anchors the show. Like if it's always going to make sense for the characters and the plot and the story and everything like that. So it's a really fun sandbox to work in for that reason. So yeah, it kind of happened naturally to answer your question.
That's awesome. So what would be your oh man, I'm blanking on your koala code that you want fans to take away.
Koala Code 1000. Please watch this show. You will be rewarded with goodies. No, I don't know. Be kind and be a good person. That should be a good koala code. That's a sappy like koalas very special episode of Koala Man, Koala Code. But yeah, I don't know. My favorite ones are all in the koala codes that are in
Oh,
there.
awesome. I really like that touch. It's kind of it really kind of shows like he is an ordinary guy, but he wants to do more, and his kind of like inspiration, desire is really like reflected in how wild the show gets at the same time. Like it's a really nice balance of like kind of like real earnestness, but also ridiculousness. It's like
Yeah, which
it's
is the hardest balance and something I was really worried about because it's like every time me and the showrunners and I would kind of pitch the show, what you realize is like because we had to pitch it a lot and we also had to pitch it to the writers when we were auditioning them for the role, kind of job interviews. Every time we pitched it, we realized we were kind of developing it more in our heads, and like we kept coming back to this thing where it's like it's grounded, but it's also it can be surreal and crazy. So it's like it's kind of like I don't know if you remember, there's a Simpsons episode where um like they're interviewing kids about Itchy and Scratchy and like trying to get like peer research, and the guy's like, so you want grounded realistic events that you're used to and also for them to fight space aliens, like, or something like that. He basically says like something that's two contrasting things, and the kids like, yes, that's what we want. That's what we want. Like we want to be able to do like the grounded Mike Judge-esque, King of the Hill-esque kind of like really grounded raw reality stuff, and we want to go full surreal and wild and do whatever. So the whole point of the show was just having that freedom was the funnest bit, and writing it is really hard, like as of writing that balance. But like I said before, it's hopefully if you've got the characters right and their wants and needs are very clear and their motivations are clear, you'd be surprised with how much you can get away with, especially when it's animated. We're very lucky that in this animated world it's kind of like a bizarre land where anything can happen.
yeah. I don't want to give away the spoilers. Just the kind of the extraterrestrial Tinder kind of thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I was crying.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Certainly one of Koala Man's most bizarre foes, but yeah, seemed to work.
What was the kind of the the current landscape of superhero trend, was that an influence in the original conception of it, or is that just kind of, or is this kind of something that you always kind of felt would be a big part of the series franchise?
Sorry, say it again. Like
Oh,
the
like there's superheroes everywhere. We got movies, there's TVs, and then Koala Man is like, is that kind of was that kind of influenced by the current landscape of
Oh,
superheroes?
sorry. Yeah. So, I've never been the biggest superhero fan. Like when I was a kid, I didn't really collect superhero comics. I gravitated more towards like Mad Magazine and like more funny comics like Simpsons and Futurama and things like that. But there was like a brief period where I just got into like superheroes for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like I watched all the Marvel movies, watched all the Batman movies, kind of like really got into it, and just for a bit. And then what kept running through my mind is like, what would an Australian superhero be? Because I don't think there's not that many. And to me, it's funny if it's just kind of a character with no superpowers. It's just a middle-aged man, and he's like in a small suburb of Australia. There's like a comedy to that just seems to make sense because Australia has a reputation of being a little bit of the butt of the joke. And while America is like grand and Gotham and big like Batman, it's like it's kind of funny to me that the Australian ones will just be like, "Hey, you, what are you doing? Stop! You can't skate there. That's a no skating zone." So like, I don't know. It just kind of happened naturally because I like merging like comedy with things, and I guess maybe it is because superheroes are big now. It's like it's everywhere, so it feels natural to kind of poke fun at or like I don't know.
He's kind of easy target,
Yeah.
kind of everywhere, so it's
Yeah.
not a big deal. Kind of, I get it.
Yeah, and I feel like I hadn't seen anything like it before. Like I just hadn't seen the Australian take on the superhero thing, but done in a animated kind of comedy way.
Speaking of the Australian take, and then you have the your American episode, which makes me think about how I live life a little bit. But there's definitely some American influence. What kind of Australian culture do you hope viewers of the show take away and kind of bring into like a global cultural thing?
I guess it's a mix where some things are genuine Australian things and some are kind of fake ones. So it's a mix. But I like I like kind of introducing Americans and international viewers to the concept of like show bags and how important bin night is for us. And just the small nuances, like having to wear school uniforms to school. Uh I remember, I don't know if that was a fight, but it was definitely like a question. It was like, so what, they're going to wear their school uniforms and then have a casual clothes? And I was like, yes, they have to. Because like it was the small things for me. Because if if the network made us have it so the kids had to go to school with like casual clothes, that would have killed me. Like it's the small, I get hung up on the details because like that's just not, it feels like that's not authentic. But yeah, like even things like in the scripts, like I don't allow mum to be spelled MOM, it has to be MUM. But that's the showrunners and all the writers were really behind that. It was a thing like the golden rule was to make it as Australian as possible. But it's a kind of a bizarro Australian land where some things are really authentic, some are just nonsense, and that's the fun of it.
Is there a tell for non-Australians to be able to recognize what is authentically Australian, what is like, oh, we know what you think of us, so we're gonna make this ridiculous, and you can
Hopefully
believe
it all blends together. I think because this is like I say, kind of a bizarro land. So hopefully you won't be able to tell. Hopefully, like this is not a documentary on Australia. It's like it's Australia adjacent. It's got your mundane things, but also like there's a living sausage roll, and they're not really that natural to Australia. So it is a mix.
My last question for you: what would you do if you could have a car like get away, no repercussions with your red hot minute?
Oh, what would I do? And it's got to be some. Oh man.
As useful or useless as possible.
Oh, that's I'd probably just I'd probably just call someone in America and just tell them the news and just be like, "This is what happens," and then they'll be like, "Oh, okay, cool," and then they'll find out that it happens in 10 hours, or however long, 18 hours. I don't know. What else could I do? I'll just read off, like, maybe I could try to do something like Back to the Future 2 style, like read them some winning lotto numbers and try to get them rich and then take the profits. Like take a percentage. I don't know. I'll do some scheming, I think. I'd have to think about it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Michael. I love the show. Can't wait for everyone else to see it.
No worries. Thank you so much, Kevin. It was great to talk to you.
Great talking to you too. Have a good one.
You too.